Whether it's her outrageously unladylike love of riding dragons, or her sharp tongue that spits fire at the men around her, Rhaenyra Targaryen was made to be a fan favorite. The only child of King Viserys is an absolute badass. Rhaenyra has become one of the many great female characters in the Game of Thrones universe. She was born into the royal family, where there were high expectations for her, but she refused to be limited by them. From the very start of the show, we find out just how formidable Rhaenyra will end up being. The minute she replied to her mother by saying, "I'd rather serve as a knight and ride to battle in glory," I knew she was going to be my favorite. At the ripe age of 15, the princess knew what she wanted in her life, and that's to live according to her own rules. She had a dislike for all ladylike behaviors that were expected of women in the Middle Ages. That's why she chose to be a skilled warrior. And of course, she had to be fond of dragons. Not only was she a great dragon rider, but she was also fiercely protective of them. This fierce loyalty and determination are some of the reasons why fans love Rhaenyra. Her strength and independence inspired many of the viewers. She's one of the most iconic feminists from Game of Thrones. Rhaenyra's willingness to challenge the status quo and break down barriers inspired many people. But she's not perfect. A character is truly great when they're complex and flawed. No one loves a perfectly good character. That's too unrealistic, and there's no way for fans to be able to relate to such a person. That's why people are mostly fond of anti-heroes and complex characters. She's lovable and inspiring not because of all the great qualities she has, but because she's got all those qualities while being flawed. She's got her fair share of weaknesses, and these imperfections make her a relatable and realistic character. One of the biggest flaws is her tendency to lie. There have been way too many times that she's told half-truths. The other time, she's told complete lies. But we can't forget that she wasn't very old. On top of that, her personal struggles make her a sympathetic character. Watching her fight against these struggles also made fans respect her resilience and determination. She was a victim of circumstances, and she had to face a lot of challenges and hardships in her life. But even though she had to deal with a misogynistic society and its unreasonable expectations, she never gave up and continued to fight for what she believed in until the very end. Her character and story remind the fans that even in the face of impossible circumstances, you can still find the strength to carry on. What were all these impossible circumstances, though? Let's look at her tragic life story first. All good characters have a heartbreakingly tragic life story, so of course Rhaenyra has to have her very own. She was born into a powerful and wealthy family, but her life was marked with tragedy and betrayal. Because of that, she had to fight against those who wanted to undermine her power and influence. Her father was well aware of her strength. He even stated that he would rather face the Black Dread than his own daughter. But she only behaved so rebelliously because she didn't want to be a prize to proffer about to the great houses. Underneath this tough exterior was a young girl who had lost her mother and infant brother when she was a teenager. And unfortunately, she had to mourn her father's loss of a son too. She knew that she would never be enough for him. Despite all the hardships that she faced, Rhaenyra remained determined and strong, which is what made fans sympathize with her. And don't forget, her love story was also tragic. At this point, fans aren't surprised by incestuous relationships in the Game of Thrones universe. So, it wasn't surprising that Rhaenyra fell in love with her uncle, Prince Rhaemon Targaryen. He's also one of the most intriguing and complex characters in Game of Thrones. Their love was passionate and intense, but it was also complicated and difficult. Despite the obstacles they faced, Rhaenyra and Daemon were willing to risk everything to be together. Their story is a testament to the power of love and devotion. But ultimately, her love story ends in heartbreak and betrayal. Although we know Daemon to be a chaotic person, choking Rhaenyra broke the respect they had. Let's face it, he couldn't have handled her controversial personality. She wasn't everyone's cup of tea. Rhaenyra was a trailblazer in many ways. First and foremost, She challenged many of the gender norms of her time. She was a powerful and ambitious woman, and she refused to be limited by the expectations placed on her by society. Her willingness to challenge the status quo and break down barriers inspired many people. She was a symbol of hope and possibility, and her story is a testament to the power of perseverance and determination. In a world where women were often seen as inferior, Rhaenyra stood out as a powerful and inspiring figure. She never stooped to men's expectations of her and refused to be limited to the gender roles they prescribed for women. Instead, she went ahead of all of the men around her and became the first woman of the Iron Throne. Just speaking up to the men in that era must have been an impossible task. Yet, she rose above everyone and became a queen against all odds. Of course, she's bound to be a favorite, and that's not the only reason why. Being a dragon rider is one of the most unladylike things she did. One of the most iconic things about the queen was her love for dragons. She was a dragon rider, and she had a deep connection with these majestic creatures. She learned how to fly on dragons when she was just 7 years old. That's when she found her dragon, Syrax, who ended up becoming her companion in running away without her father's knowledge. Her dragons were her loyal companions and protectors, and she would do anything to keep them safe. They weren't just a symbol of her power and strength. They also represented her connection to the past and to her family's legacy. Of course, her love for her dragons is badass, but it's also something that fans find inspiring and endearing. The queen didn't have a happy ending, though. She faced betrayal at the hands of her own people. Though it's sad, her tragic ending only made her fans love her more. Despite her many successes, Rhaenyra's reign was ultimately cut short by the violent and bloody conflict known as the Dance of the Dragons. She faced betrayal from some of her closest allies and family members, and ultimately met a brutal and gruesome end. Her death was a tragic and heartbreaking moment in the Game of Thrones universe, but it also served as a reminder of the harsh realities of power and politics. Even though she faced this unfortunate end, her strength, resilience, and determination in the face of adversity continued to inspire her fans. In a world where women are often marginalized and overlooked, Rhaenyra stands out as a powerful and inspiring figure. Her story reminds us that even in the face of challenges, we can find the strength to grow and overcome them. Whether it was her defiant girl boss attitude or the way she dealt with all the tragedies in her life, Rhaenyra is a certified favorite for Game of Thrones fans.